Every mile I found myself regretting the recruiter's offer a little more. The pay was good, too good. As I eyed the dilapidated houses with blankets over the windows and abandoned gas stations, it became clear why. Relics of a long-past oil boom dotted the landscape in the form of crumbling manors. The main strip reveled in apparent attempts to preserve some of the town's dignity. It was a shame fresh paint and flowers could only offer so much charm. The hospital came out of nowhere as I took the last bend. It was tucked inside the heart of the county with woods flanking on either side. I couldn't remember the last time I had seen so many trees. My assignments were typically in hospitals, precariously set in the middle of busy cities where the sirens never stopped and parking spots were a hot commodity. The building was squat and only half the letters on the sign lit up. But smiling people chatted with each other on the sidewalk, and staff in brightly colored scrubs greeted patients like old friends. I threw my backpack over my shoulders and headed in. The sliding door squeaked, and I braced myself for the scrutiny of a security guard. Instead, I was met with a cheerful hello from the associate behind the front desk. I looked around the cozy lobby and felt myself relax. The lobby was bathed in warm, muted colors, and well-loved houseplants lined the windows. The murmur of daytime television gave the air a sense of lulling. "Hi," my voice betrayed my nerves. "I'm the new traveler." "Oh, you must be Talia," she gushed. "We've been so excited to meet you. It's always a treat to have a new face around here." "I'm Crystal, by the way. Make yourself at home. I'll call Kim. She's the nursing director. You'll love her." I smiled and sat in one of the patterned chairs, idly rubbing the worn grain of the armrests. Kim wasted no time busting in through the door. A smile plastered on her face, almost as bright her hot pink scrubs. She was a far cry from the pantsuits and scowls I was accustomed to management sporting. "Talia, is it? We are just thrilled to have an extra set of hands. Come on, honey, let's get you settled." She rattled off facts as she walked me down the hall. It was a 13-bed critical access hospital with a surprisingly busy emergency room that served surrounding rural community. A central nurse's station looked down 2 short halls and a meager trauma bay. Most of the equipment seemed familiar, just on a much smaller scale than I was used to. The paint was chipped and the furniture outdated, but the space was clearly well-loved. It was more than I could say for many of my previous assignments. Kim took me to HR to get my paperwork started after her tour and explained my schedule. She would have me go through an expedited orientation for a day and then 2 weeks on day shift before I was sent to nights for the remainder of my assignment. I shuddered at the thought. Truth be told, I was sick of the night shift. Every hospital I had been to seemed a little more intimidating at night, and the longer I worked the shifts, the further shadows seemed to stretch in the corners. I could feel the breath stealing from my lungs and my vision blacking out at the thought of those dark fingers stretching closer, ever closer, strangling me in the broad daylight. "Talia, are you okay?" Kim frowned, genuine concern lining her face. I forced out a shuddered breath. "Of course. I'm just tired from traveling." "Well, dear, we really are glad to have you. Your family while you're here." I faked a smile and nodded along. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur as I finished up the last of my training. "It's too bad you're on nights. We'll miss you," one of the day nurses told me. Instinctively, I searched for the lie in the words, almost annoyed when I found only authenticity. "I couldn't do it," another chimed in. "The ghost stories freak me out too much." "Don't scare her." She rested a hand on my forearm and I bit back my aversion to the touch. "They are kind spirits," the other nurse snorted. "Tell that to the last traveler." Hair raised on the back of my neck. "What happened to them?" She waved her hand in dismissal. "Don't worry about it, you belong here." I rolled her words about belonging, the lie leaving a bitter ash on my tongue as I drove to my first night shift. The lights of the hospital did little to banish the shadows. Instead, they seemed to suck in the softness of the building to leave nothing but sharp edges. Inside, the fluorescence seemed dim without sunlight. The ceilings were too low, and the halls too narrow. Reflections warped off linoleum floor that had been waxed too many times. I swallowed hard. It was all in my mind, it always was. I was joining 3 nurses on this shift who greeted me with the same enthusiasm everyone else had. 3 things you gotta do on our shift. 1, leave the supply closet cracked. 2, the lights stay off in the therapy room. Nobody uses it at night anyway. 3, don't bother the night janitor. He's real grumpy, but he can get a blood stain out of anything. You can talk to Rosa. the other night janitor, but she doesn't speak English. Cassie rattled the list off without so much as pausing for a breath of air. Taylor must have seen the questions in my eyes. When the air turns on at night, it makes a knocking sound on the door, and the wiring is bad in the therapy room. It flickers a lot. I didn't notice on days, Kate laughed. Day shifters don't notice anything. I'll show you the extra stuff we do at night. If we get done fast enough and the ER is slow, we have a lot of fun around here. My initial unease faded fast. The ER kept us so busy those first couple of weeks that I didn't have time to think about it. We made for a great team, and I found myself relaxing on shift for the first time in years. Fall painted the landscape anew, and I found myself seeing the beauty in this little town more with each passing day. Perhaps I had been too quick to latch onto the flaws. The community did have a certain charm about it. I sat at the nurse's desk alone, scrolling through my phone long enough that when I looked up, the dim light seemed jarring. The busy summer spell was coming to an end, and I was soaking in the opportunity to sit back for once. A sharp 3 knocks straightened my back. My head swung around as I searched for the source. I was about to walk down the hall and check on the patients when the rapping sounded again from the supply closet. "Cassie, did you lock yourself in there?" I laughed as I swung open the door. It was empty. "I told you to keep the door open." I whipped around to see Cassie behind me. "But it's just the AC kicking on." That was not the AC. She walked around me and pushed the door to where it was cracked. "This building is over 60 years old. It makes weird sounds." She walked away, and I stared after her as she made rounds, my heart pounding in my chest. "The truth is what you make it." Taylor's voice held a tinge of sadness to it as she joined me. The next night I was on inpatient duty in the 200 hall. I brought the patients their dinner, fresh blankets, and nightly medications. It was easy to form idle chat with them as I took their vitals and settled them in for the night. Even those in pain were happy just to have some company as the lonely fall of night swept over the facility. Once everyone was good, I kicked back at the nurse's station. I eyed the cracked supply closet and tried to keep my heart rate from skyrocketing like it did every time I saw that slit of darkness. My skin crawled at the thought of something lurking in the void. The call light for room 213 came on and pulled me out of my own head. I frowned. Nobody was in that room tonight. "Hey, Cass, I thought room 213 was empty." "It is." She shrugged. "Probably a glitch. It happens sometimes. Just turn it off." I rubbed the goosebumps on my arms, but I wasn't about to admit I was afraid of a faulty call light. The hall seemed to close in on me with each step, and suddenly, the void of the supply closet didn't seem so intimidating. "Hello." My voice quivered as I peered around the door into the dark room. A figure loomed in the corner. It reached for me, warping the darkness around in it, a murky swirl of shadows. My mouth opened and a scream caught in my throat as I slammed the light switch and pedaled backwards, falling over my own feet. I hit the ground and scrambled until my back hit the wall with the image of the figure stalking towards me burned into my retinas. Talia Taylor crouched down with me while Cassie and Kate ran into the room. "Just breathe, you're okay," Taylor murmured. We both looked up as Cassie came out of the room pushing an EKG cart. "It's just the broken cart, Tal." "Sure gave you a spook." Cassie wiped tears of laughter from her eyes. Kate frowned. "I thought they shipped this thing off to get the screen fixed. What's it doing here?" "I don't know. Day shift can take it to the loading dock in the morning," Taylor said. "You could take it," Cassie muttered. "We don't go to the loading dock at night," Taylor snapped. "Come on, Talia. I think you could use a break." It took me a long time to stop shaking. Every time I closed my eyes, the dark blotches behind my eyelids twisted into that cloaked figure. It hadn't been the EKG cart. But what else could it have been? I was making my own ghosts. If there was anything being a traveler had taught me, it was that there wasn't a soul around better at ruining their own fortune than myself. Nobody said much for the next few shifts until the weird tension finally broke. I stuck to the ER cases for a while until I felt up to inpatients again. It was all in my head. I told myself, we had a new admit who was Native American. She had a beautiful handmade blanket that she laid across her lap in her room. She was a lovely patient, and I found myself lingering in her room as she told me stories from her childhood on the reservation. She was desperate to return home. Her eyes held a faraway light, and I wondered what it was like to feel that connected to place. To feel like there was somewhere you inexplicably belonged. She grew colder over her stay and stopped telling stories. It dampened my mood, but I brushed it off. Hospital stays were draining, and I couldn't fault her for that. I didn't think much more of it until Kim pulled me into her office one morning as I was leaving. Look, Talia, I know you aren't from around here, so you may not be aware of some parts of cultural care for our Native American population, but you need to be more respectful. What did I do? I'm sorry. I swear it wasn't on purpose. Her mouth formed a tight line. I'm sure you didn't know, but you can't whistle at night. It's believed that it invites negative energy. Oh! Okay, I can't whistle, though. I'm reminding all the girls, but I did pull the security footage to see who was doing it. She tapped at her computer, muttering in annoyance at the device as she went along. Here. She turned the screen towards me with a squeak and clicked play on the clip. It was a fuzzy rendering of the 200 hall, so washed out that it almost seemed in grayscale. Sure enough, I was walking along with a handful of blankets in my arms. The camera was at my back, so you couldn't see my face, but the unmistakable sound of whistling sounded from my figure. We all have our little fidgets. Please just be more aware and do not whistle at work. I hastily agreed and rushed out of the office, tears burning behind my eyes. Never had I whistled, but it was right there, on the camera, as clear as day. What was wrong with me? The girls must have sensed I was off the next shift. They kept trying to cheer me up, but I found myself drifting further into my own listlessness. Kate snapped me out of it when she hopped up on a rolling chair to pop the clock off the wall, like she did every night. I instinctively reached out and steadied the chair. Is this OSHA approved? I joked. She laughed. Don't report me. Why are you always messing with that thing? Anyway, Cassie leaned over the counter. She's OCD, gotta have the timeline up exactly. Kate rolled her eyes. Shut up. This stupid thing gets stuck every night and I'm tired of the day shifters whining about it. I wish they would just replace it, but this place is so cheap. Have you tried new batteries? Girl, I've gone through a whole box. It's just a cheap clock. I eyed it with suspicion. It was about as basic as a clock could be. White background, blocky black letters, and a cracked faux wood border that almost seemed to warp the plastic cover. The hands quivered as she rotated it, stuck on 0333. Everything around here is crappy, Cassie moaned as she tapped the security monitor screen. Floating orbs drifted across the CCTV feed overlooking the loading dock. Freaking cameras pick up every dust mote in the county. A chill snaked up my spine as the orbs faded away, only to reappear on another feed across the hospital. My mouth went dry, and I found myself transfixed as I watched them drift in a hypnotic dance across the screens. Bet Rosa could clean off the dust, Taylor mused. Oh, no. Don't make Rosa climb up there. That other janitor dude could do it if he wasn't such a douche. I'll tell Jason in the morning, Kate retorted. Oh, first name basis with the maintenance guy now. Scandalous, Cassie chirped. Shut up. Everyone is on a first name basis here. Sure. Sounds like an excuse to me. Their light-hearted bickering couldn't pull me away as my eyes stayed trained on the screens. It was as though I were underwater, their voices distorted and far away as my heartbeat pounded in my ears. One by one, the orbs died away. None of them seemed to care as they drifted off to check on the patients. I stood up fast, balling my fists so tight that I felt the bite of my fingernails in my palms. The janitor kept sweeping on the back hall monitor. He never faltered away from his hyper-focus on whatever task he was working on, but as though he could feel the rake of my gaze, he looked up as though staring back at me. The grain of the feed made his eyes look like a pair of dark vacuums. The arrival of an ambulance pulled me away. I pushed myself further into my work rather than dwell on those camera feeds, vowing that one of the others could glance at them from now on. My imagination was too prone to running wild. My next shifts were uneventful to the point that I was ready to full-heartedly accept that I was crazy. After all, the others made it all seem so trivial. I wished I could relax like them and stop feeling like a guest in my own skin. An inpatient in room 103 took a liking to me. She was a kind lady, always showing me pictures of her grandkids. It was nice to have the time to connect with a patient like that. She stopped me one night as I was saying my goodbyes. Could you please have them do something about the scratching on the window? It wakes me up at night. I walked over to the pane, light reflected back from the hallway, obscuring the outside world. The corners were stained with mildew, but sure enough, long-fingered branches scraped at the edge. It grated at my ears and set my teeth on edge. I'll put in a maintenance ticket, I assured her. Thanks, love. You're an angel. I smiled and made my way back to the nurse's station. Hey, Kate, can you hit up Jason to trim the branches outside 103's room? Sure thing. She spun around in her chair. Oh, can you take some water to 208, please? Of course. I made my way down the hallway that seemed darker than usual. One of the light bulbs was out, so I went to the end and turned on the lights in the therapy room before doubling back to 208. I was about to ask Kate to add the light bulb to the maintenance request when a flicker at the corner of my eye had spinning back around. The therapy room flashed in a series of short flickers, followed by long flares and another set of short flickers. It stabilized for so long that I thought my eyes must have been playing tricks on me before it happened again. Who turned on the therapy room lights? Taylor snapped. The light bulb was out, and it was dark. Turn them off. Her voice was a snarl. Geez, Taylor, give her a break. It's not her fault the wiring sucks. Cassie came around the corner. Look, I'll get it. What? Afraid you're gonna be the next one to have a seizure, Kate barked. It could happen to anyone with those lights flashing in the dark like that. That's happened, I managed to squeak out. They spoke at the same time. Don't worry about it. I am sorry, I tried again. She sighed. It's fine. I shouldn't have snapped. I'm a little sensitive to it is all, Taylor admitted. I was good friends with the last traveler. Morning couldn't come fast enough. Each passing shift had me craving the light of day more than the last. I found it more and more difficult to sleep, and fell into an old pattern of sleeping pills that I had sworn I wouldn't resort to again. I was caught up in my own tangled thoughts when Kate called out to me during my next shift. Hey, you gave me the wrong room number. What I asked, confused. The branches. They were outside room 205, not 203. Kate raised her eyebrows. No. I distinctly remember seeing them in room 203 with Mrs. Cooper. Kate shrugged. You were probably just tired. Have you tried blackout curtains? Cassie butted in. Yes. My voice came out sharper than I intended, and she raised up her palms in defense. Whoa, don't shoot the messenger. Just trying to help a girl out. Yeah. Sorry. Skay. Hey, you want to help me roll this EKG cart to the loading dock? Is that the one with the broken screen? Yeah, people keep leaving it in random rooms, and I'm tired of it. Didn't Taylor say we aren't supposed to go back there at night? She rolled her eyes. Don't be superstitious. It's fine. I chewed on my lip, but followed her anyway. She chatted about the prank she had pulled on Jason and Keitel while she was watching him clean mold out of the ceiling. Nothing seemed to bother her. Each step set my nerves on fire, and I felt like I was walking the gallows while she was throwing back her head with laughter. I swallowed repeatedly, my ears popping and the hair rising on the back of my neck as the temperature dipped low enough to pepper my skin with goosebumps. Man, it's cold back here. These old buildings are the worst. Here, let's just stick it by the maintenance door, and maybe they'll actually box it up this time. A wave of thick cologne sent me coughing. Cassie wrinkled her nose. Ugh, gross. We both looked down the hall where the janitor was sweeping down the hall. Hey, buddy, cool it with the perfume, will you? Cassie, I hissed. She snorted. What someone's got to tell him. Let's just get out of here. Tension wrought my shoulders as I felt eyes watching us leave. They left lingering swaths down my back and followed me long after we left the loading dock. I became jumpier than ever and found myself misplacing everything I touched. It was to the point that the others wouldn't even wait for me to ask anymore. They would just hand me a pen when I went to write something knowing mine was gone. This assignment was dragging out too long. The money wasn't enough to justify it anymore. I was snapped out of my funk one morning by Kim calling us all into her office. Girls, I know you know the rules, and I know that in reality you are going to be on your phones sometimes, but you need to be discreet about it. If you keep blatantly disregarding the rules like this, I'm going to have to enforce the ban. What are you even talking about? We've been swamped. Nobody has been on their phones in weeks. Cassie bristled. I've gotten multiple complaints from patients about kids laughing outside their rooms. I know it's those little videos you all watch on your phones. And where exactly is your proof? I don't need proof when I have 7 patient complaints in 2 weeks. How do you know it's not just one of their TVs? It's spread across both halls and multiple patients. So you think? Kate stopped her. Look, we are sorry. It won't happen again. We left the hospital and Cassie whirled Kate around as soon as we were out of sight of the lobby. What did you do that for? You know, it wasn't us. Because it isn't worth it, Cass. Just let it go. She huffed and stomped off. You think it was a TV? Taylor pursed her lips. I don't know, or care. Patients will complain about everything, but we do play on our phones when it's slow, and I don't want to risk Kim taking them away by arguing. At least this time I didn't have to fight back tears. I was too drained to find the energy. Cut my contract. I dared them with my thoughts. What I wouldn't give to be out of that town as it cracked around me. Bringing into hyperfocus every pothole and broken streetlight, every boarded-up building and abandoned piece of furniture. Sometimes I drove into the city and stared at the glittering glass windows and neon signs just to purge this place from my mind, if only for a moment. And yet another night came. I stared at my pen on the floor when I swore it had just been on the desk and sighed. If I left it, it would probably disappear just like all the others. A call light flashed for room 103 and I slid my chair back slowly. My hatred for that room was only beat out by 213. What can I help you with? I asked the lady who had bundled herself under a pile of blankets so thick that only a pair of watery eyes peered out. Make him stop touching my face. I just want to go to sleep. Who is touching your face? The man. The man in the hat. He keeps coming in here and touching my face. I'm tired of it. Okay, I'll see what I can do. She harumphed and buried herself deeper into her blanket nest. Hey, Taylor, has 103 had any visitors? No, the doctor hasn't even made rounds for a while. She said a man in a hat keeps touching her face. Taylor paled, but recovered quickly. She's in early-stage dementia. I'll mention it to the doc in morning rounds. You know what they say about Hat Man? Cassie sang. Not this again, Kate groaned, sliding down into the chair at the station. She's gonna croak. 72 hours. Bet. Cass, don't talk like that about patients. She rolled her eyes. Literally everyone does. Yeah. Well, Kim is already on our asses, so at least do it when we aren't sitting under cameras. Fine, but y'all should make your bets. I looked up at the camera and wondered if orbs floated around us like they did on the feeds. An involuntary shiver crawled up my spine at the thought, and I dared to peek at the screens. Nothing out of the ordinary. Just the janitor sweeping away. It was a wonder there was any dust to mote with him around. The very next night, a bang sent me rocking to my feet when the grief room door swung open so hard that it ricocheted off the wall. Shit, all three of them said at once and rushed to room 103. In slow motion, I followed, as though I were wading through a waking dream. The patient lay prone on her bed with lifeless eyes pointed at the window. For a fraction of a second, I saw the figure of a man in a hat raking fingers across the warped glass, but it was gone with the next blink. I rubbed my eyes hard enough for bright spots to explode behind my eyelids. Talia, startled, I croaked out a simple response. What? Get the doc. Dead as a doornail, he pronounced dramatically. All I could think about was that hat man and the way that door had flung open. This was more than me being tired and letting shadows dance in my imagination. I approached Taylor late in the night after the coroner had wheeled the body away. That door opened on its own, I told her. This building is drafty. It happens sometimes. You all knew to go check on 103, I argued. She's a complainer. Wanted to make sure she didn't get woken up. Cassie knew she was going to die. It's just a coincidence. Just tell me what is happening here, I shouted, shocking myself. I never raised my voice. Taylor's eyes grew wide at my outburst. I told you, Talia. Her voice was barely a whisper. The truth is what you make it. Be careful what you choose. Days and nights passed in such a blur that I could no longer define the edges. Only the occasional moment would flare out of the patterned obsolescence. Footsteps in an empty hall, a shadow falling from a still room, another dissipated pen, a whisper over my shoulder. The press of a cold spot in a warm hallway. I wanted to be frightened, but it was becoming all too easy to dismiss it like everyone else did. Perhaps I would be just like everyone else in that hospital, donning the rose-colored glasses, ready to die rather than take them off for even a moment. Kim stopped us again. I steeled myself for her to cut me for my poor performance. Rosa has the flu. We don't have anyone who can cover her shift, so you all will have to take over some of the janitor duties. Mostly turning over rooms. Why can't the guy janitor do it? Kim's face scrunched. There's only one night janitor. No, there isn't, Taylor added. We see the other guy all the time. He's just a bit of a jerk. I've seen him too. He's usually sweeping. She picked up her walkie. Charlie, can you come to my office really quick? Copy, the maintenance manager replied. He strode in. Yes'm. They are saying there's a male night janitor. Nah, don't have any males on staff right now. We see him all the time. Cassie's voice grew frantic. Pull the footage. He hangs in the back hall. Kim and Charlie shared a look, but relented, pulling the footage. We crowded behind them as they sped through tape after tape. There was nothing there. Well, the footage skips, right? The cameras are old. I'll tell you girls what. You see him again? Give me a call and I'll come up. It was probably just Rosa. It wasn't Rosa. Taylor's voice was strained. Forget it. Cassie threw her arms up. Expect a call. She glared back as she stalked out of the room. If you truly feel someone is in the building who shouldn't be, please call the police and have them clear the building. They are just up the road and won't mind. We nodded, the animosity palpable in the air. The next shift we worked together had all of us on edge. It was refreshing to not be the only one bothered. Buzzing ran down my veins from the mixture of caffeine and sleeping pills that were keeping me alive. But my mind felt clearer than it had in weeks. I had rolled down my windows on the drive and sucked that cold air deep into my lungs over the bridge, letting it wash me clean. I've never actually seen him, Kate mused as we watched the monitors for a sign of the janitor. Is he cute? Kate Taylor chided. Is that all you ever think about? Isn't Jason enough? She shrugged. Can't a girl look? He's old. He could probably be your dad. Taylor rolled her eyes. Kate wagged her eyebrows. Maybe I like him older. Taylor scowled with a disgusted look, but was interrupted before she could say more. There he is, Cassie hollered, jumping out of her chair so fast that it tipped over and clattered against the peeling linoleum. I knew it. Cass, where are you going? Kate called. I'm going to go confront that asshole. Who's coming? They told us to call the police if we saw him again, Taylor argued. Oh, like that grumpy bastard is going to do anything. He's been hanging around here for years. You call them while I go tell him what's up. Kate snatched up a walkie. I'll go with her. Of course you will, Taylor muttered under her breath while she made phone calls. My eyes stayed trained on the feed. It almost seemed to crackle under my scrutiny. Never once did his sweeping falter, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, the same spot over and over and over again. Hey Taylor, isn't it odd? Cassie and Kate came into view. Their heads swung around and Cassie threw up her arms and looked at the feed. Still, the man kept sweeping, as though there weren't two girls right in front of him. Kate put the walkie up to her mouth. Where'd he go? My voice quivered as I answered. He's behind you. They swung around, searching in confusion before turning back to the camera. Nobody's there. Tal. He's right there. My voice rose an octave as panic clawed at my throat. Taylor joined me, staring for a second before picking up the walkie. What are y'all doing? He's right there. Cassie narrowed her eyes at the camera and waved her arms in front of it. We don't see anyone, Kate said, so slowly that it almost seemed as if he weren't moving at all. The sweeping ceased and he turned to the camera, looking straight into it. A shot of ice pierced my heart as the shadows warped around his face until he was glowering at us. Get out of there, Taylor's whispered into the walkie. Cassie and Kate bolted. We looked up when they came running around the corner, and when we turned back to the feed, he was gone. What was that? Kate started to cry, and Cassie's face was so pale I grew worried she might faint. You really didn't see him? Taylor asked as she guided Cassie to a chair. Nobody was there, she cried, but it got really cold, like somebody left the door open. The police and Charlie showed up shortly after. Everybody who had keyed into the building was accounted for when they checked the system. Pulling the feeds was useless. By the time Cassie and Kate showed up on screen, the video was skipping and wavering so much that it was hard to even discern them. It wasn't like that, Taylor cried. The feed was clear. We saw him, we all saw him. Probably just a trick of the light, or an old image superimposed. We will sweep the building again. But it looks like you girls have nothing to worry about other than an overactive imagination. We gaped at him, but there wasn't anything we could do. They didn't believe us. We were dismissed just as easily as everything else around there was. If anything, it would have been more surprising if they had admitted something was wrong. The truth is what you make it, I thought idly. Winter fell around us. He never showed up on the feeds again. It was just another anomaly that I doubted had ever really existed. One night I stared at the floor of the empty trauma bay. Strange shadows seemed to scuff the floor under the bed. I snagged one of the purple wipes and tried to wipe it away, but it didn't budge, even when my fingers turned red and started to burn from scrubbing. It won't go away. Taylor said behind me as she came in to restock the cabinets. What is it? I don't remember this being here before. She looked me in the eye, her voice void of all emotion. Blood. Blood doesn't do that. She slammed the cabinet shut. The floors are old. They need replaced. I watched over the next few shifts, and even so much as a drop of blood on the floor left a small shadow behind. How had I never noticed before? Subtly, I started lying down towels or positioning any potential blood spill over rubber mats. Something about the little shadows opened a pit in my stomach. We were slower than we had been since I had started there. A handful of patients were in the 100 hall, and the ER visits tapered off until the night was dead. The patients had been fast asleep for hours, and we milled about the nurse's station, buried in our phones. After the incident with the janitor, our conversations had died to near zero. It surprised me when Cassie smacked my arm and pointed to the monitors. Each of the feeds slowly dimmed until they were too dark to much more than vague shadows. Taylor grabbed the mouse and circled it around, trying to wake it up to no avail. The phone rang and we all jumped. Cassie picked up and dropped it once before nesting it into her shoulder and offering a greeting. Hello, her face wrinkled in confusion. Hello, I can't hear you. Who is it? Kate asked. She shrugged. I just hear whispers. Let me hear. She pressed it to her ear and frowned before passing it around to each of us. I listened close, only hearing a whisper, too soft to discern anything more than that it was a voice. At first, I thought it was female, but then the tone would shift, and I wasn't sure anymore. It reminded me of the quiet prayers they had played daily over the intercom systems in a Catholic hospital I had worked at once. Cold sweat started to break the longer I listened, and my throat went dry. I slammed the phone down and looked at the others. Maybe it was bad service. They'll call back later if it's important. Footsteps sounded down the 100 hall. We all stood up, but nobody was there. Cassie opened her mouth as though she were about to say something when the lights flickered out in a procession down both hallways before stuttering back on. We huddled together behind the nurse's station. Taylor's voice wavered. It's windy. It messes with the power grid. As if on cue, the wind outside whipped up into an eerie howl. The ceiling tiles seemed to shake and a thin powder of dust rained down, making the air thick around us. The phone started to ring again, and Kate picked it up quickly before slamming it back down. Again, it rang. Again, she hung up. Outside, the wind pressed harder against the building until its howl was shaking the window panes. Help! Help me! Someone! Please, a voice screamed down the hall. Pressing our fears aside, we ran to the patient rooms, each of us taking one. I stopped in front of room 203. The patient was fast asleep. As I looked to the others, they nodded their heads to affirm that everyone was where they were supposed to be. Help, please. God, help me. That's coming from down the 200 hall. There aren't any patients in that hall tonight. An ER patient. The last one left hours ago. Silence impregnated the air as we collectively held our breath. Why, the voice wailed, please, please don't. Help me. Maybe it's the lab girl. Kate's voice was a whimper. Taylor snatched the walkie. Lab copy. Seconds that felt like hours passed before we got a response. Copy. Are you okay? Yeah, just chilling. What's up? Where's Julie? Is she in the radiology room? She's sleeping in the lounge. Y'all need imaging, I can get her. Someone's yelling for help down the 200 hall. Okay, probably just a patient, she said before dropping off. Leave me alone. Pain saturated the voice so thick that my teeth ached. We huddled closer as our arms clutched each other. The lights started going out one by one until only the one above our station was left. The eerie glow of exit signs were the only splashes of color down the halls, right as another gust of wind picked up. It sounded as though the roof were peeling off. God, please help me. The voice devolved into a garbled whimper. I think it's the CT room, Taylor said, tears streaking down her face. Kim snatched a phone off the counter and dialed 911, keeping her voice low and steady despite the panic in her eyes. Down the 200 hall, I watched the CT room door that was firmly shut. Nobody went in there at night. It was a heavy door anyway, difficult to open. The shadows warped, sticking to the darkest corners and swelling with each scream of the wind. I narrowed my eyes as sickeningly familiar figures seemed to manifest in the darkness before breaking away into nothing. We have to go check, Cassie said with more bravado than I thought possible. Someone needs help. We can't just stand there. What? And find them just like you found that janitor, Taylor hissed. She's right, I added. I don't think it's safe.
Please, help me!
The voice sobbed. That's it, I'm going. Cassie pulled away and I grabbed her arm, the others following in suit. Let me go, she thrashed. The police will be here any minute, just wait, Kate begged. As if on cue, the lights all flashed back on and the wind died right as the grief room door slammed open, swinging back and forth with a terrible squeak from the momentum. A banging from the front door caught our attention, and before any of us managed to get up, the police breached with guns drawn. They filed down the hall and gave the door 3 hard kicks before it finally gave way, afraid to so much as a breath. We waited an eternity before one of the cops came running out, pale and clammy. We need medical assistance. Kate paged the doctor while the rest of us took off running down the hall. Nothing could have prepared me for that room. The patient from room 203 was sprawled across the ground. Her eyes were milky and wide. An expression of pure horror stretched her face into a grotesque scream that was frozen in death. Bones jutted from her ankle, her foot hanging on with stringy tendons. It was cracked at a 90-degree angle with mangled flesh gaping through the break. Blood formed a haloed pool around her as it saturated her thin white hair, matting it down in clumps. We were escorted away from the scene and wrapped in blankets outside. I stared off into the trees that seemed sinister in the glow of the swirling red and blue lights. Everything happened as though we were in slow motion. Voices were garbled and distorted as they asked question after question. They had to repeat them 3 times before I was able to comprehend, let alone form a response. Eventually, we were cleared to leave. Her body was wrapped up in a bag and hauled away. The managers reviewed footage and found nothing to condemn our actions, and the administration was quick to sweep everything under the rug. They labeled it a freak accident. I knew the drill, and didn't bother to wait for them to cut my contract short. I simply left and waited for my recruiter to call. You're starting to get a reputation, Talia. It's getting harder to find contracts for you. What do you have this time? There was a sigh from the other end and a shuffling of papers. I'll email you the info. Can you just do me a favor this time? No more mysterious deaths on shift, please. I was tired of it too. It wasn't fair that I couldn't ignore the shadows like everyone else. Every time I turned my hands over, the blotches blooming my skin seemed to darken, like the stains that would forever mark the floor of the CT room. No matter how many times I scrubbed them, they continued to mock me. Even chemical peels and shaving off a layer of skin with a knife hadn't touched them. I'll take it. I told her before hanging up. The road ahead was my only comfort as I drove on into the endless charade of my life, always the traveler.